Well, hello there, Midwest Fur Fuzzies. Was Midwest Furfest 2022 the largest, most awesome furry convention ever in the history of the known universe? Well, the short answer for me personally is no. But it may have been the most awesome furry convention ever for you, and it probably was for a number of people who attended. So let's talk about it. No furry convention is a furry convention without a theme. And the theme for Midwest Furfest 2022 was heroes, as in superheroes. They did a really great job with the theme this year. There was artwork and stuff everywhere all around the convention space, reminding you of the superhero theme. They even came up with, I think, 7 original superhero characters and a super villain. Honestly, I have to say this was the best theme integration I've ever seen at Midwest Furfest. It can be a little weak sometimes. Now, in terms of opening ceremonies and somewhat closing ceremonies, yeah, the theme wasn't really talked about as much as it could have been. MFF has always been kind of weird with their opening and closing ceremonies. They tend to be more about introducing and acknowledging staff and logistical stuff like that, rather than being really enveloped in the theme and trying to get people hyped up and stuff like that. They can honestly be a little dry. Now, to be perfectly fair, closing ceremonies was actually pretty good for MFF this year. They did bring the theme into that a little bit more. They introduced next year's theme, which is Snow Days, and they had some excitement related to the charity and stuff like that. So, closing was actually decent and watchable. All right, well, you may be asking yourself, why was Midwest Furfest 2022 not a super awesome convention for me? We'll get to that in a bit. But first, let's talk about the positives. Let's talk about stuff that happened there that was really cool and I really enjoyed. First of all, I got to hang out with some really cool people, some old friends and some new ones. Big shout out to my roommate Leonard, who was super chill, Rusty Born Warhorse, Benji the Beagle, Ponder Beaver, and Havoc the Demon Proto, also Spectre the Wolf, who I got to hang out with at various times throughout the convention. It was super cool seeing all of you, and I hope to see you again at a convention soon. Now, the other super cool thing that happened was me getting to host the YouTuber panel at MFF. This was kind of a big deal. It was like coming full circle. I went to the YouTuber panel in the incredibly cringy fursuit I had at the time in 2017 and announced that I was thinking of starting a YouTube channel. And the rest was history. By 2019, I'd had some success and I was actually co-hosting the YouTuber panel with the likes of Odin Wolf, Corey Coyote, and BioGods. Much bigger creators then than I am 3 years later still. And this year, I got to host the YouTuber panel. Well, there's a long story behind that, but it happened. And instead of just getting up there and talking and hosting it myself, I invited everybody in the room who were established creators to get up there with me. And we kind of bounced ideas off each other. We all talked about stuff and we answered a bunch of questions, and it turned out to be a really good panel, and it was one of the best experiences of the con for me. So thanks to Spikey and Benji and everybody else who was involved in the panel. You are amazing. Okay, another super cool thing that happened was that I ran into an artist friend of mine, Tavi Monk. Actually, he messaged me on Telegram and was like, hey, can we meet up somewhere? I was not expecting this. So I was like, sure. And we met up in the dealer's den and he showed me what he had for me. He had made me these 2 amazing badges, one of Riv and one of Lurks. Now, the story behind this kind of goes back to the baby fur video I did a few weeks ago. In that video, I said, I'm not a baby fur, but the art can be really cute, and I'd love to see what my characters would look like as babies. So Tavi kind of specializes in that type of artwork. He made me badges, which I'll show to you right now. Now, on one side of the badges are Riv and Lurks as adults. And if you flip the badge over, you will see them as babies. I even have my little tie-dye diaper on, just like I had my really big tie-dye diaper on during the baby fur video, which then made its way onto Riv's face after he didn't pay me my $50. He still hasn't paid me. So thank you so much to Tavi for that. That was an awesome gift and I was totally surprised by it. Other than that, it was just a giant furry convention and you can't help but have some fun. There were fursuits everywhere of every color and shape and variety and species. There were fursuits with citrus fruit stuck in their butt crack. There were fursuits with really big tails. There were fursuits with really big personalities. It was just fun to see all the suitors all over the place. Okay, so the only reason MFF 2022 was not like a super great con for me was that I broke my own rule by attending. My rule is that if I don't have a dedicated group of friends at a con who share common interests with me, who I know are going to hang out with me, it's probably better off for me not to go to the con because I'm going to end up being bored and lonely, and I definitely was here. But that's my own fault and not the fault of the con. The con was a pretty amazing experience, and I'm sure for people who had a bunch of friends there, it was just absolutely epic. I gotta be honest, when I saw the COVID rules for MFF 2022, I was a little bit surprised. I was like, wow, those are really strict. Now, I'm not one to complain about that sort of thing, but I was like, wow, you have to be double vaccinated and boosted, and you have to wear a mask at all times, even when you're in a fursuit. So after I saw the crowds at MFF 2022, I realized why they had those restrictions in effect, and I absolutely agreed with them. It was so packed in there. The registration line, the vaccine check line, the Hyatt Regency, basically anywhere you went between Friday and Saturday, the Sky Bridge, the dealer's den, it was just massive numbers of people packed closely together. This would have been a super spreader event if they hadn't had strict COVID guidelines. There has been some spread reported, but not really any more than you would expect. So let's talk about the crowding a little bit. Midwest Furfest 2022 had 13,641 attendees. Honestly, this is the first MFF where I felt that the con had actually outgrown the convention spaces at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare, and the con had actually outgrown the hotel capacity of the local area. Now, without the possibility of changing venues, how do you deal with something like this? Well, I mean, the crowding at the Hyatt Regency could be pretty easily dealt with by just moving more of the convention activities into the Stevens Convention Center. They've been doing that throughout the years anyway, and that building is huge and could handle a con of probably 100,000 people. But what about the hotels? This is the big problem. This was the first year where I didn't know a single person who actually got a room in the main hotel in the lottery. The only reason I was able to get a room was that I jumped on the cancellation block as soon as it opened, and I got one at the Crown Plaza, which was not ideal, but it's better than nothing. Most people I know didn't get a hotel at all in the original room lottery. Not even at the Aloft, which is the hotel that's like barely better than sleeping behind a dumpster in the alley. This is the first MFF where it was common for people to be in hotels that were so far away that they had to take public transportation or an Uber just to get to and from the con. I honestly would like to see MFF institute a registration cap. I know that sounds pretty extreme, but if they capped it at like 10,000 people, pretty much anybody who was serious about going to the con and was willing to pre-register would get in. It's not like Furry down in Australia where they have this tiny registration cap of like 800 people. I think if they did cap it at 10 or 11,000, it would eliminate some of the crowding and it would take some of the pressure off the hotels to the point where people could actually get a room at least in the general area of the convention within walking distance. Another weird kind of random thing I noticed about this particular MFF was the noticeable lack of Popu furs. Now I know I made a video talking about why that title is kind of stupid, but you know the group I'm talking about. Either they just weren't there or they kept a really low profile. Now, I have nothing against these people, but honestly it was kind of refreshing seeing some new faces getting attention. I think the most popular furry at the convention was actually Cooper Tom, which is really cool because he's an old school furry. His involvement in the fandom goes back decades. He was running around everywhere and everyone was taking pictures with him, and Sunny Dingo as well. Not that Popu furs are bad or anything, but it was kind of cool to see that change in dynamic. And I think I'm going to do another video next week on this exact topic and extrapolate on it a little more. So there's the good, there's the bad, there's the in-between, and it's all just my opinion. Were you at Midwest Furfest 2022? If so, tell me in the comments what you thought about it. Did you have an awesome time? Did it suck? Let me know. Thanks as always to our super incredible amazing patrons. You keep this channel going and growing. And if you would like to be a super awesome patron, there is a link in the description. There is also a link to our new website where you can find pins, and soon you will be able to find these delightful Riven Lurks tie-dye t-shirts. So, here's the big question. Am I going to go to Midwest Furfest again? Now, I had a similar experience in 2019, and I said, this is my last MFF, I'm not going to MFF anymore, it sucked, blah, 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 blah. Then I ended up going back again in 2021 with a group of friends who I was rooming with, or at least in the same hotel with, actually got the main hotel that year, ended up having an awesome time. It kind of redeemed MFF for me. So I'm not going to say I'm not going back. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next week with some more fluffaliciousness, and don't go anywhere yet. We have a bunch of random footage of fursuiters running around being silly. Stay fuzzy, stay safe, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye now.